Okay, here's the solution to some of your warm-up questions. So we're going to solve these. The very first one here, it's already in factored form, which makes it easy to solve. So I know that x plus 2 must equal to 0, so x would be equal to negative 2. And then I know that x plus 3 must be equal to 0. And so x has to be negative 3. So those are my two solutions. And so if I put in a negative 2 into this function, I'm going to get 0. If I put in negative 3 into this function, I'm also going to get 0. So those are my two solutions. This one here is in standard form. It's much easier to solve this if this is factored. So once again, I'm going to look at this and say, well, I need two numbers that add to 5 and multiply to 3. Turns out that's going to be 2 and, multiply to 6, and that's going to be 2 and 3. So they add to 5 and multiply to 6. And actually, it's the same exact function as this one over here. So it's much easier to solve if we have a factored function here. So that's going to give me x plus 2 equals 0, so x is equal to negative 2, and x plus 3 equals 0, so x is equal to negative 3. So again, we get the same solution because it's the same function as this one over here. Okay, so one strategy if you're looking at it, if you want to solve for the zeros, much easier to factor. This one over here, we could expand this one and factor it. I'm going to show you another method, so we're going to use solving here. So I'm going to solve by inverse operations. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo every operation. So we know that typically when we calculate, we use BEDMAS. So I'm going to go backwards. So BEDMAS backwards would be SAMDEB. So I'm going to undo the subtraction, addition, multiplication, division, etc. So I'll undo it in this order. So if I'm looking at this here, I know that it looks like I'm subtracting 9. So I'll undo that first. So there's my subtraction. So it's x minus 4 all squared is equal to, here I bring it to the other side, so instead of subtracting I'm going to add, so it's going to be plus 9. Alright, I look through here, I don't have any multiplication, division, I do have a subtraction but it's inside brackets, so actually the next step is I look at that exponent. Okay, so here I'm squaring, I'm going to do the opposite of squaring, and the opposite of squaring is to take the square root, so I'm going to take the square root, so x minus 4 is equal to the square root of 9. Now one thing to keep in mind here is when I take a square root, two numbers could square to 9. It could be a positive 3 or a negative 3. So whenever we take a square root, we're going to put positive or negative in there. And so then I'm just going to simplify on the next step. X minus 4 must be equal to plus or minus 3. Okay, if I keep going with this, let's see, x minus 4 equals plus or minus 3. So here I have a subtraction. I'm going to bring that to the other side, becomes addition. So x must be equal to positive 4 plus or minus 3. Okay, that gives me two different solutions. That means that x equals 4 plus 3 or x equals 4 minus 3 because there's two values for this here. So it's positive or negative. And so all I'm going to do with this is I'm going to say, well, x must be equal to 7 or x must be equal to 1. Okay, so this is just a different way of solving this one than you might have seen. But this is what's going to help us lead into this next step, where we're going to use this method in order to solve any possible equation. So now we're going to build on this and solve any possible equation using this method.